A poor delivery driver overheard one conversation at a luxury hotel. It inspired the business that made him a millionaire. Caleb Monroe was 28 years old when he carried 6 boxes of imported champagne through the service entrance of the Grand Marlowe Hotel and overheard the conversation that changed his life. At the time, he owned nothing that suggested he was moving toward success. The delivery van belonged to his employer. The uniform belonged to his employer. The phone in his pocket was 3 payments behind. The apartment where he slept belonged to a landlord who had already taped one late rent notice to the door. Even the black handcart he pushed through the hotel corridor had a metal plate stamped with another company's name. Caleb's only personal property of value was a dented laptop, a folding bicycle with one unreliable brake, and a silver wristwatch that had stopped working 3 years earlier. The watch had belonged to his father. Caleb continued wearing it because replacing the battery felt disrespectful. His father, Samuel Monroe, had spent 31 years driving delivery trucks, furniture, restaurant supplies, office equipment, medical materials, anything that could be stacked, tied down, signed for, and forgotten immediately after arrival. Samuel used to say there were 2 kinds of people in business: the people who owned the things being moved, and the people whose backs moved them. Caleb had always assumed the sentence was a complaint. Only later did he realize his father had been giving him a warning. That Thursday morning, Caleb's shift began at 4:30. He arrived at Dalton Beverage Distribution before sunrise, wearing work boots repaired with black adhesive and a navy jacket with his name stitched above the pocket. The warehouse supervisor handed him a route sheet: 17 deliveries, 4 restaurants, 3 bars, 2 private clubs, 1 convention center, 6 hotels, and a final stop at a catering company on the far side of the city. Caleb looked at the schedule. This is 2 routes. The supervisor, Leonard Shaw, continued drinking coffee. It's 1 route today. Half these places have delivery windows. Then don't miss them. The Grand Marlowe wants everything before 9. Then start there. The Harbor Club doesn't accept deliveries after 11. Then go there second. The restaurants don't open their service docks until 10. Leonard looked at him. You want me to drive? No. Good. Caleb folded the route sheet. Dalton Beverage employed 31 drivers. Caleb was one of 6 classified as temporary, even though he had worked there for nearly 2 years. Temporary employees received fewer benefits, no guaranteed hours, and no protection when routes were reduced. But they received the same heavy boxes, the same deadlines, the same complaints, and the same responsibility for products worth thousands of dollars. Caleb had applied for permanent status 4 times. Each time, Leonard told him the company was reviewing staffing. The review never ended. Caleb loaded the van himself. The Grand Marlowe order included champagne, rare wine, imported mineral water, and several crates of premium liquor for a private corporate conference. The invoice total was more than $38,000. Caleb earned $144 for the entire day if he completed the route without overtime being challenged. He reached the hotel at 8:20. The Grand Marlowe occupied a restored stone building in the center of the financial district. Black cars waited beneath the entrance canopy. A doorman in a long coat opened doors for guests without appearing to touch them. The lobby contained marble floors, enormous flower arrangements, and a chandelier shaped like frozen rain. Caleb never entered through the lobby. Delivery drivers used the loading dock beneath the building. The dock manager examined the invoice. You're late. The window is before 9. It was supposed to arrive at 8. The document says 9. The man pointed toward the service elevator. Conference staff are waiting. Move quickly. Caleb loaded the first 6 boxes onto the handcart. The service elevator was occupied by housekeeping carts, so a kitchen employee directed him through a narrow corridor and into a carpeted hallway near the hotel's executive conference rooms. Take the second door on the right, the employee said. Someone will sign. Caleb pushed the cart forward. The carpet made the wheels difficult to move. He could hear voices from behind a partially open door. At first, he paid no attention. Hotels were full of conversations not meant for him, business deals, arguments, affairs, complaints about food, rooms, employees, and money. Delivery workers learned to become invisible. People said honest things around someone they did not consider part of the room. Caleb stopped outside the conference suite and checked the number. The voices inside became clearer. A woman was speaking. "We lost 42% of the welcome packages," a man answered. "They weren't lost. They arrived after the guests checked out." That is the same thing from the client's perspective. "Our courier partners received incomplete arrival information." "No, your system received the information. It failed to react when flights changed." Caleb looked toward the open door. Inside, 5 people sat around a table covered with tablets, printed schedules, branded gift boxes, and hotel maps. A screen displayed the name of a company, Luxora Guest Experiences. Caleb recognized the logo from the labels on several packages in the hallway. The woman continued, "We charged the client $280,000 to coordinate arrivals, gifts, restaurant reservations, and transportation. Yesterday, 3 executives waited 40 minutes for cars. 12 guests received the wrong welcome boxes. 6 packages were sent to rooms that had changed." The man across from her leaned forward. "Luxury logistics is complicated." "It is not complicated to the client. They paid because they didn't want to think about it." Another man spoke. "The hotels should manage room changes." "The hotel manages rooms. We manage the guest experience." Caleb looked down at the champagne boxes. One of the Luxora packages sat on a small table near the door. The label had been crossed out twice. 3 different room numbers were written on it. A younger employee said, "We need more drivers." The first man shook his head. "Drivers are not the problem. Information is the problem." "No," the woman said. "Ownership is the problem. Everyone completes one part and assumes the next person will handle the rest." Caleb stopped breathing for a moment. The sentence sounded familiar. Every day he collected products from warehouses and delivered them to businesses, but no one truly tracked what happened between the loading dock and the final person who needed the item. A hotel clerk signed for boxes, a kitchen employee moved them, an event coordinator checked a spreadsheet, a courier left an envelope with the front desk. Each person completed a task. No one owned the outcome. Caleb knew this because he lived inside those gaps. He had delivered birthday cakes that sat in hot loading rooms, medical equipment that arrived at the wrong hospital wing, flowers accepted by security after the recipient had left, conference materials stored in basements while guests waited upstairs. Once he had delivered a wedding dress to a hotel where no one could locate the bride's reservation because the booking was under her mother's name. The dress spent 3 hours beside cleaning supplies. Everyone had followed procedure. The bride still received it 20 minutes before the ceremony. The woman inside the conference room said, "Our clients are not paying for movement. They are paying for certainty." Caleb stared at the door. Not movement, certainty. The dock manager appeared behind him. "Why are you standing here?" Caleb pushed the cart inside. A man at the far end of the table looked at him with irritation. "Just place it near the wall." "I need a signature." The man pointed toward the younger employee. She stood, signed the device without reading the invoice, and returned to the table. Caleb looked at the branded boxes again. One label listed a guest named Jonathan Price. The hotel room number had been changed from 1408 to 2217. Beneath that was another note. "Arrival delayed, 7:45 p.m." Caleb glanced at the current time, 8:30 in the morning. The package contained perishable chocolates. "Excuse me," he said. The room went quiet. The senior man looked at him. "Yes?" "This box says the guest arrives tonight." The younger employee answered, "We know. Those chocolates are sitting near the radiator." She looked toward the package. The woman who had been criticizing the operation stood and moved it. "Thank you." Caleb nodded. The senior man's expression suggested the conversation was over. Caleb pushed the empty cart away, but the words followed him through the hotel. "They are paying for certainty." At the Harbor Club, Caleb delivered 12 cases of wine. At a restaurant called Verona, the manager refused 4 boxes because the order had been changed, but Dalton's system showed no update. At the Crown Plaza Hotel, no one could locate the banquet manager authorized to sign. Caleb waited 27 minutes beside the loading dock while a corporate breakfast ran out of sparkling water upstairs. At noon, a chef called him directly and asked why the delivery had not arrived. Caleb explained that he had been standing inside the building. The chef shouted at him anyway. By 3, Caleb had missed the delivery window at 2 locations. Leonard called. "What is taking so long?" "Hotels." "You deliver to hotels every week." "And every week they send me to 3 departments before anyone signs." "Manage your time better." "The Crown Plaza kept me at the dock for half an hour." "Not my problem." "It becomes my problem when the route is late." "You're the driver. The route is your problem." Caleb looked through the windshield at the boxes still inside the van. "Then let me solve it." "What?" "Nothing." He completed the final delivery at 7:10 that evening. Dalton refused to approve 2 hours of overtime because Leonard claimed Caleb's delays were caused by poor route management. Caleb argued for 6 minutes, then he stopped. His father had spent decades making the same arguments. The company always had another explanation, a policy, a classification, a missing signature, a technical reason why time worked by the employee did not fully belong to the employee. Caleb drove home in darkness. His apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building beside an elevated train line. Every passing train shook the bedroom window. His younger sister Maya was sitting on the kitchen counter eating cereal when he entered. She was 21 and studying graphic design at a community college. She lived with Caleb because their mother had moved into assisted care after suffering a stroke. Maya looked at his face. "You smell like champagne." "I delivered $38,000 of it." "Did they give you one?" "They gave me a signature." She pointed toward the table. "Rent notice." "I saw the first one." "This one says final." Caleb removed his jacket. "How much are you short?" "Tuition took more than I expected." I asked how much. $400. He opened the refrigerator. There was half a carton of eggs, mustard, 2 apples, and a plastic container of rice. "I'll handle it." "With what?" "I'll ask for extra routes." "You already work 12 hours." "I'll work 13. Maya watched him. "You say things like Dad." "That isn't an insult." "It isn't a compliment either." Caleb looked at her. She immediately regretted the sentence. Their father had died 4 years earlier after falling asleep at the wheel on a winter delivery route. The official report said fatigue may have contributed. Dalton Beveridge had not employed him, but the company had been similar. Long routes, unpaid waiting time, pressure to continue. Samuel Monroe had spent his life delivering other people's goods on schedules designed by people sitting behind desks. He died in a truck he did not own while carrying products that were insured for more than his life. Caleb cracked 2 eggs into a pan. "What happened at the hotel?" Maya asked. "Nothing." "You've been staring at the wall since you came in." He told her about the conversation, the lost packages, the delayed guests, the argument over drivers and information. "They charge companies almost $300,000 to send gift boxes to hotel rooms?" Maya asked. "Not only gift boxes, transportation, reservations, personal requests." "And they're bad at it?" "Apparently." "Then why do clients hire them?" "Because executives don't want to manage all the details." Maya ate another spoonful of cereal. "So rich people pay other people not to be inconvenienced. That is most luxury business." "What was the sentence?" Caleb turned the eggs. "What sentence?" "The one you keep repeating in your head." He looked at her. "They're not paying for movement. They're paying for certainty." Maya nodded slowly. "That's good." "It isn't mine." "It can still give you an idea." Caleb carried the plate to the table. "I'm a delivery driver." "You say that like it prevents ideas." It prevents money. What's the idea? He sat down. I don't know yet. But he did know part of it. The city contained thousands of businesses that moved items constantly. Hotels, law firms, hospitals, event companies, real estate offices, restaurants, luxury retailers. Most used ordinary courier services. A driver collected a package, a driver delivered it. A signature ended the responsibility. But some deliveries mattered after the signature. A passport needed to reach the guest before a flight. A legal document needed to be placed in the correct executive's hand. A replacement dress needed to reach a wedding suite before photographs. A medication needed to arrive at the right hotel room and remain refrigerated. A presentation model needed to be inside the correct conference room before investors arrived. These clients were not only paying for speed, they were paying for someone to prevent failure. Caleb opened his laptop. For the next 4 hours, he searched. Courier companies, concierge services, hotel logistics, event delivery, executive travel support, same-day business services. The market was fragmented. Large courier companies moved packages efficiently but did not manage the final details. Concierge companies handled requests but outsourced physical delivery. Hotels accepted items but rarely tracked them beyond the dock or front desk. Event planners coordinated schedules but relied on multiple vendors. Everyone owned a piece. No one owned the entire outcome. At 1:30 in the morning, Caleb created a document. He typed a name at the top. Last Mile Assurance. He immediately deleted it. Too technical. He tried Certainty Courier. Too obvious. Direct Hand. Too strange. Maya walked into the kitchen for water. You're still awake? Yes. What are you calling it? I don't know. What does it do? It makes sure important things reach the right person, not just the right building. She leaned against the doorway. Then call it handled. Caleb looked at the screen. Handled. Simple. Clear. He typed it. Handled. Underneath he wrote, "We do not deliver packages. We complete the request." The next morning the sentence looked less impressive. Caleb went to work anyway. For 3 months, Handled existed only in a notebook. Caleb recorded every delivery failure he witnessed: wrong department, unavailable signer, room change, event schedule change, missing access instructions, unrefrigerated food, delayed flights, unclear responsibility. He wrote possible solutions beside each one: live recipient confirmation, photo evidence, temperature tracking, hotel staff coordination, backup routing, real-time schedule updates, direct handoff. He began asking customers questions after deliveries. What happens to this after I leave? Most looked confused. At a boutique hotel, a guest services manager answered, "If it's for a guest, someone from the bell desk takes it." How do you confirm the guest receives it? We mark it delivered. To the guest? To the hotel. That isn't the same. The manager looked at him. No, it isn't. At an architecture firm, Caleb delivered a scale model worth $20,000. The receptionist signed for it. Where does this need to go? He asked. Conference room B. Can I take it? Deliveries stop here. Is the meeting today? In 20 minutes. The model was too large for the receptionist to move. Caleb carried it upstairs despite company policy. The presentation team had been waiting. The partner leading the meeting gave him $20. Your courier company should offer this service, the man said. Caleb put the money in his pocket. What service? Not abandoning expensive things at reception. That evening, Caleb created a basic price list: standard city request, urgent request, direct handoff, hotel guest delivery, event logistics support, secure document service, after-hours rescue. He had no vehicle, no software, no insurance, no clients. He had the name, the idea, and $37 available after rent. Maya designed a logo, a simple word mark with a check mark hidden inside the letter D. She built a one-page website for a class project. Handled important deliveries, fully completed. The website asked customers to describe what needed to happen, not only where a package needed to go. Caleb registered the business using money he had planned to spend on new work boots. He kept wearing the repaired pair. His first customer came from the architecture firm. The partner's name was Julian Price. He called Caleb directly. "I kept the number from your delivery device. I'm still working for Dalton." "I'm not calling Dalton." Julian explained that his firm had a client presentation at a hotel the following morning. A custom material sample was arriving by air freight at 6. The meeting began at 9. They needed someone to collect the package from the cargo terminal, verify that it had not been damaged, deliver it to the hotel, and place it directly inside the conference room. "How much?" Julian asked. Caleb had no idea. Ordinary courier pricing suggested $100. The request required waking at 4, traveling to the airport, coordinating cargo release, wading through possible delays, examining a valuable sample, communicating with the hotel, and guaranteeing placement before 9. $450, Caleb said. He immediately feared the price was too high. Julian answered, "Fine." Caleb understood he had probably charged too little. He called in sick to Dalton. At 4:30 the next morning, he rented a small cargo van by the hour. The air freight office could not locate the package. Caleb waited while employees searched. At 6:50, a clerk discovered it had been transferred to another terminal. Caleb drove there. The wooden shipping case had a broken corner. He photographed the damage before opening it. The material sample inside was intact. He sent images to Julian. Then the hotel told him conference room H had been changed to the Essex Suite. The Essex Suite was being cleaned after a late event. Hotel security would not allow Caleb upstairs without an employee escort. Caleb called the guest services manager, then the event coordinator, then Julian's assistant. He waited. He explained. He insisted. At 8:41, the sample stood on the presentation table inside the Essex Suite. Caleb sent a photograph. Julian replied with 2 words, "Perfect, thanks." The entire job took 4 hours and 20 minutes. After van rental, parking, fuel, and registration expenses, Caleb earned $260, almost 2 days of delivery wages. More importantly, the request had nearly failed 4 times: cargo transfer, damaged case, room change, security restriction. A standard courier might have delivered the package to the hotel dock and left. Handled had completed the outcome. Caleb printed the photograph and placed it beside his laptop. His second job came 3 weeks later. A woman needed a replacement wedding veil collected from a designer across town and delivered directly to the bridal suite. Traffic closed 2 major streets. Caleb completed the final mile by bicycle. The bride's mother paid him $600 and hugged him. The third request involved transporting confidential contracts between 2 law offices and waiting until the correct partner signed every page. The fourth involved collecting a specialty medicine from a hospital pharmacy, carrying it in a temperature-controlled container, and delivering it to an elderly hotel guest. The fifth was a failure. A corporate client asked Caleb to collect personalized gifts and place them in 12 executive hotel rooms before arrival. Caleb coordinated with the hotel. He confirmed room numbers. He labeled every package. But 2 executives exchanged rooms after check-in. The gifts reached the wrong people. The company complained. Caleb refunded the entire $800 fee. He had spent nearly $500 on transportation and assistance. The loss erased a month of profit. Maya watched him send the refund. "You completed most of the job." "Most is not what I sold." "The hotel changed the rooms." "We should have confirmed after check-in." "You can't control everything." "No, but I can design for things that change." He added a new rule: final recipient confirmation before room placement. Then another: no unattended hotel room deliveries without a verified guest list and designated hotel contact. Then another: every request required a named outcome owner. He built procedures from mistakes. Dalton remained his full-time income. Operated early mornings, evenings, weekends, and on days Caleb could exchange shifts. He slept less. His apartment filled with thermal bags, garment covers, locks, labels, folding carts, and rented equipment. Maya answered customer emails between classes. She created digital confirmation forms. They used a shared spreadsheet to track every request. One night, Caleb returned from a hotel delivery at 2 in the morning and found Maya asleep at the table beside her laptop. He placed a blanket over her. Then he looked at the spreadsheet. 23 completed requests that month. Revenue, $9,840. Expenses, $4,917. Profit before tax, $4,923. Handled had made more than Caleb earned at Dalton for 1 month. That did not make it stable, but it made it real. The next morning, Leonard called Caleb into the warehouse office. A printed screenshot of the Handled website was on the desk. "What is this?" "A business." "You're operating a courier company while employed here?" "Handled isn't a traditional courier company." "That was not the question." "Yes." "Using Dalton customers?" "No." "Julian Price's firm is a customer." "I met him on a Dalton delivery." Leonard leaned back. "So you are taking business from us?" "Dalton doesn't offer the service he hired me for." "You used access from this company to build a competitor." "I carried a model upstairs because your delivery policy would have left it at reception." "That is not your decision." "It helped the customer." "It exposed us to liability." Caleb looked at the screenshot. "What happens now?" "You close the business or resign." The answer arrived faster than he expected. Caleb had imagined leaving Dalton after building savings, after hiring someone, after securing regular clients, after replacing his phone and paying rent on time. He was not ready. Leonard slid a document toward him. "We can also terminate you for conflict of interest." "Then why offer a choice?" "Because you work hard." Caleb looked through the office window at the warehouse floor. Drivers pushed handcarts between pallets. Scanners beeped. Supervisors checked times. Boxes moved from one place to another. His father had spent a lifetime inside places like this. Caleb thought of the sentence, "People who owned the things being moved, and people whose backs moved them." He had always assumed there were only 2 categories. Now he understood there was a third, the people who built the system. "When do you need my answer?" Caleb asked. "Now." He removed the Dalton jacket. His name remained stitched above the pocket. Caleb folded it and placed it on Leonard's desk. "I resign." Leonard looked surprised. "You think that website is a company?" "No." Caleb looked at the folded jacket. "I think it could become one." His final paycheck covered 1 month of rent. Handled had 8 scheduled requests. Nothing guaranteed the month after that. Maya stared at him when he returned home before noon. "You quit?" "Yes." "Did you plan to?" "No." "Do we have money?" "Some." "How much is some?" "Not enough." She closed her laptop. "Good." "Why is that good?" "Because if we had enough, you'd spend another year pretending you needed permission." Caleb's first month full-time was his worst. 3 corporate clients delayed payment. A hotel prohibited outside delivery agents from accessing guest floors. The rental van company raised prices. Caleb accepted too many small requests and spent entire days crossing the city for little profit. He confused revenue with progress. The calendar looked busy. The bank account did not. He ended the month with less money than when he resigned. Julian introduced him to a business advisor named Ruth Daniels. Ruth had built and sold an event staffing company. She met Caleb inside a coffee shop and reviewed his pricing. "You are charging for distance," she said. "Partly." "You should charge for consequence." "What does that mean?" "What happens if the request fails?" "It depends." A legal document arriving late may cost millions. A wedding veil arriving late destroys 1 moment. Medication arriving late risks health. A restaurant menu arriving late is annoying. So I charge customers based on how badly they need me? You charge based on complexity, urgency, responsibility, and risk. That sounds like taking advantage. No, taking advantage is hiding the price. Pricing responsibility is explaining what you are assuming. She looked at his service list. You also say yes too often. I need clients. You need profitable clients. A small request can lead to a large one. So can working for free. That does not make it strategy. Ruth helped Caleb restructure Handled. The company stopped marketing itself as a courier. It became an outcome management service for high-priority physical requests. Every job included planning, live tracking, proof of condition, direct communication, contingency support, and final completion evidence. Caleb created minimum pricing. He rejected ordinary food deliveries, simple envelopes, and low-value errands. At first, revenue fell, then profit improved. Clients began using Handled for more complex work. A luxury fashion company hired them to coordinate samples across 5 hotels during Fashion Week. A hospital hired them to deliver time-sensitive equipment between facilities when normal distribution channels failed. A law firm used them for confidential document transfers requiring identity verification. An event company hired Handled to manage speaker materials, gifts, wardrobe, and emergency replacements during a 3-day conference. Caleb hired his first driver. Her name was Tasha Green. She had worked for 3 delivery applications and knew every service entrance in the city. During the interview, Caleb asked, "What is the difference between a successful delivery and a completed request?" Tasha answered immediately. "A successful delivery reaches the address. A completed request reaches the person who needs it." He hired her. The second employee was Omar Bell, a former hotel bell captain. He understood hotel operations, guest privacy, room changes, service elevators, security procedures, and which managers could solve problems quickly. Maya became the company's first operations coordinator. She postponed her final college semester. Caleb objected. "You finished school." "I can finish next year." "No. We need someone controlling the requests." "We'll hire." "With what money?" "We'll find it." You worked 2 years for a company that refused to make you permanent. Don't build another company that asks family to sacrifice without ownership. Caleb looked at her. "What do you want?" 10%. He laughed. "I'm serious." "For answering emails?" "For designing the brand, building the website, creating the tracking forms, and stopping you from naming the company Certainty Courier." 5. 12. You moved in the wrong direction. 10. 7. 10 and I finished school part-time. Caleb held out his hand. 8. Maya shook it. 10. You are difficult. You are poor at negotiation. She received 10%. Handled moved from the apartment into a narrow office above a dry cleaner. The company owned no fleet. Caleb believed vehicles created unnecessary cost. They used trained independent drivers, rental vans, bicycles, local transport partners, and specialty carriers depending on the request. But every job was controlled by Handled's operations desk. That control became the company's advantage. Then the Grand Marlowe called. The same hotel where Caleb had overheard the conversation. The request came from Luxora Guest Experiences. Its operations director, Vanessa Cole, wanted a meeting. Caleb recognized her voice before she introduced herself. She was the woman who had said clients were paying for certainty. Handled now employed 7 people and generated nearly $900,000 in annual revenue. Caleb still remembered standing outside her conference room with champagne boxes. Vanessa entered the meeting carrying a tablet. "We need a local logistics partner," she said. "What kind of support?" "We coordinate executive conferences, private travel, luxury events, and brand experiences. Physical fulfillment remains inconsistent." "Packages?" "Packages, wardrobe, gifts, documents, specialty food, replacement items, last-minute purchases." "What outcomes do you currently guarantee?" Vanessa paused. "Delivery within requested windows." "To the building or the person?" She looked at him more carefully. "The final recipient when possible." When possible is where failures live. The sentence sounded bolder than Caleb felt. Vanessa did not object. We have a technology platform, vendor network, and hotel partnerships. What we need is reliable field execution. You need someone to own the physical outcome. Yes. Caleb opened Handled Service Framework. He explained dynamic recipient confirmation, condition tracking, hotel coordination, backup routing, named request owners, escalation procedures, proof beyond signatures. Vanessa read silently. This is unusually detailed. It came from unusually expensive mistakes. How long have you operated? 2 years. How many cities? 1. We need 8. Then we are not ready. Vanessa looked surprised. Most small companies exaggerated. Caleb had learned that admitting limits created more trust than pretending they did not exist. What would make you ready? She asked. Local operating partners, standard training, better technology, capital. How long? 18 months. We need support in 6. Then hire someone else. Vanessa leaned back. You're willing to lose the contract? I'm unwilling to win a contract that destroys the company. She smiled slightly. Mr. Monroe, do you know where we first met? You signed for champagne at the Grand Marlowe. Her expression changed. You were the delivery driver. Yes. You heard the meeting. Part of it. How much? Enough. Vanessa looked at the Handled logo. Did that conversation inspire this? It showed me the problem. The work taught me the solution. She was quiet for several seconds. What if Luxora funds the expansion? Caleb did not answer immediately. What would you want? Exclusivity in luxury hospitality. No. Why? It would prevent us from serving hotel groups directly. Minority ownership? Possibly. Board seat? Possibly. 8-city launch within 9 months? No. 12? 14. Vanessa smiled. Now you're negotiating. Luxora offered $3 million for 35% of Handled. Caleb nearly accepted. The money would fund software, hiring, insurance, and expansion. Ruth reviewed the offer. They are valuing the company at less than $9 million, she said. That is more money than I've ever seen. That is not analysis. They bring clients. They also want exclusivity. We can negotiate it. They want control of your most profitable category. Caleb looked at the document. What would you do? I would ask whether Handled is a vendor they want to grow or a problem they want to own. Caleb returned with a counteroffer. $3 million for 20%. No broad exclusivity. A 3-year service agreement with minimum guaranteed volume. Handled retained control over hiring, training, technology, and client acceptance. Luxora rejected it. Vanessa called him. You're asking us to fund your growth without receiving strategic protection. You receive priority capacity and pricing. That is not enough. Then we should remain vendors. You are not large enough to support us. Not yet. Another company will. Then use them. The call ended. Maya thought Caleb had made a mistake. Tasha agreed. Omar did not. They wanted the playbook, he said, not only the service. Caleb was uncertain. $3 million could have changed everything. For 6 weeks, Luxora stopped sending requests. Handled's revenue declined. Then one of Luxora's conferences failed. A replacement presentation system was delivered to the hotel but left in storage. A keynote speaker began without it. The client threatened to cancel future work. Vanessa called Caleb at 11 that night. We need your team in Chicago in 2 weeks. We do not operate in Chicago. Set it up. 14 months became 2 weeks? This is one event. How many guests? 600. How many physical requests? Estimated 400 across 4 days. What budget? She named a number. Caleb doubled it. Vanessa agreed. Handled built a temporary operation. Omar traveled first and recruited former hotel staff, couriers, and event workers. Maya created local procedures. Tasha mapped loading entrances, conference rooms, retailers, pharmacies, print shops, tailoring services, and emergency suppliers. Caleb personally trained 22 temporary staff. Every request entered one command center. Every item had a named recipient, deadline, condition, backup path, and completion record. During the event, a speaker's luggage was sent to the wrong airport. Handled purchased replacement clothing based on measurements provided by the assistant, and arranged overnight retrieval of the luggage. A sponsor's display material arrived damaged. Handled found a local fabricator and produced a replacement before morning. A guest's medication was left inside a hotel refrigerator after a room change. A Handled coordinator recovered it and verified the new room directly. 437 requests were completed, 6 required emergency intervention, none failed. The conference client renewed with Luxora. Luxora signed Caleb's original counteroffer. Handled expanded to 8 cities over 14 months. The transition was difficult. Local teams interpreted procedures differently. One office falsified completion photographs to hide late requests. Caleb closed it temporarily and replaced the manager. In another city, a contractor stole luxury merchandise. Handled reimbursed the client before the investigation ended. Insurance premiums doubled. The technology platform crashed during a major event. For 3 hours, the team coordinated requests through paperboards, phone calls, and text messages. Caleb learned that systems had to survive the failure of the software meant to support them. He insisted every office maintain offline procedures. Investors called it inefficient. Then a national network outage occurred the following year. Handled continued operating, competitors did not. By the 5th year, Handled served luxury hotels, hospitals, law firms, event companies, film productions, private aviation firms, and corporate travel departments. Revenue exceeded $40 million. Caleb's personal wealth existed mostly on paper. He owned company shares. His checking account was finally stable, but he still lived in the same apartment building, now in a larger unit 2 floors above the original. Maya bought him a new watch for his 33rd birthday. He continued wearing his father's broken one. "You are allowed to replace things," she said. "It still tells me something." "It tells you the same time all day." "That isn't what I mean." The company's greatest opportunity came from a hospital network. North Star Health operated 38 hospitals and more than 100 clinics. Its problem involved medical supplies, lab samples, patient belongings, discharge medications, and urgent equipment transfers. The network already used multiple courier firms. The packages moved, the outcomes failed. Lab samples arrived at buildings but missed processing cutoffs. Discharge medicine reached hospital desks after patients had left. Patient belongings remained unclaimed because names did not match records. Specialty devices were delivered without staff being notified. North Star's chief operating officer, Dr. Angela Brooks, had learned about Handled through the hotel industry. She asked Caleb whether the company could adapt its system to healthcare. "Our teams understand high-priority physical requests," he said. "Hotels are not hospitals." "No. In healthcare, failure can harm patients. In hotels, failure usually creates embarrassment or financial loss." "Usually?" Caleb told her about the medication delivery during Handled's first year. Angela examined the service model. "You would need healthcare privacy training." "Yes." "Temperature compliance." "Yes." "Chain of custody controls." "Yes." "Specialized insurance." "Yes." "You say yes easily." "I say yes to requirements, not timelines." She smiled. North Star offered a pilot across 3 hospitals. Handled created a healthcare division. The first month exposed weaknesses. Hospital naming systems were inconsistent. Departments moved equipment without updating records. Patients changed rooms. Nurses could not always answer phones. Security procedures differed by facility. A package could reach the correct floor and still fail to reach the correct patient. Caleb spent nights shadowing hospital staff. He saw the same problem he had first recognized at the Grand Marlow. Everyone completed a task. No one owned what happened next. Handled created hospital outcome coordinators. They did not merely transport items. They verified the current patient location, clinical recipient, storage requirement, and final use. When possible, they confirmed that the item had been opened, logged, administered, installed, or returned. A delivery was not closed because someone signed. It was closed when the intended action occurred. The pilot reduced lost items by 72%. Urgent equipment delays fell dramatically. Patient complaints related to missing belongings and medication decreased. North Star expanded the contract across its network. Other hospital systems followed. Handled was no longer a luxury service company. It had become a physical outcome infrastructure business. The phrase sounded complicated. The work remained simple in principle. Do not stop at the address. Finish what the customer actually needed. During the company's 7th year, a major logistics corporation offered to acquire Handled for $650 million. Caleb owned 46% after investments and employee equity. The sale would make him wealthy beyond anything he had imagined. Maya would receive enough money never to work again. Early employees would become millionaires. Luxora supported the sale. Some board members said refusing would be irresponsible. Caleb read the acquisition documents inside the Grand Marlow Hotel. The buyer planned to integrate Handled into its premium courier division. The brand might remain, the operating model would not. Outcome coordinators would be reduced. Local teams would be centralized. Direct handoff would become an optional service tier. Completion verification would rely more heavily on automated signatures. The buyer valued Handled's client list, technology, and reputation. It did not value the expensive human systems that created the reputation. Caleb asked the acquiring executive one question. What happens when the software says complete but the person still doesn't have what they need? The executive answered, no system eliminates every exception. Who owns the exception? The appropriate support team. Which one? That depends on the category. Caleb looked down at the offer. Everyone completes one part and assumes the next person will handle the rest. The sentence had created the company. The acquisition would recreate the problem at a larger scale. Caleb rejected the offer. Handled's valuation fell after the announcement. 2 investors sold their positions. Business media described Caleb as emotionally attached to operational details. One article said he had confused his personal story with shareholder responsibility. Maya entered his office carrying the article. Are we irresponsible? Possibly. I could have bought an island. You hate beaches. I could learn. Caleb looked through the office window. Handled's operations floor occupied 2 levels. Large screens showed active requests across 43 cities. Medicine, contracts, equipment, wardrobe, event material, patient property, emergency replacement items, thousands of outcomes in motion. Do you think I should have sold? He asked. Maya considered it. No. Why? Because they thought the last mile ended at the door. Caleb nodded. 3 years later, Handled completed a public stock offering. The company was valued at more than $4 billion. Caleb became a billionaire on paper. But the first article about him used the headline, "From Delivery Driver to Logistics King." He disliked it. Handled did not exist because Caleb had driven faster, worked harder, or discovered a clever way to move boxes. It existed because he had understood that movement was often the least valuable part of a delivery. The value lived in preventing the reason for the delivery from failing. On the morning after the public offering, Caleb returned to Dalton Beverage Distribution. The warehouse had changed ownership. Leonard Shaw no longer worked there. The company manager recognized Caleb and offered a tour. Caleb declined the executive office and walked directly onto the warehouse floor. Drivers loaded vans. Temporary employees wore different colored badges from permanent staff. Route sheets remained unrealistic. A young driver argued with a supervisor about unpaid waiting time. Caleb listened from a distance. His father could have been standing there. So could Caleb, 8 years earlier. Handled had recently created an employee ownership program. Caleb decided that day to expand it. Drivers, coordinators, dispatchers, hotel specialists, hospital teams, and warehouse workers would receive shares based on tenure and responsibility, not only executives. The board objected to the cost. Caleb answered, "The company is valuable because thousands of people refuse to leave important things at the wrong desk." The plan passed narrowly. Maya became Chief Brand and Experience Officer. Tasha led field operations across North America. Omar became President of Hospitality Services. Ruth joined the board. Vanessa eventually left Luxora and became Handled's Global Strategy Director. During her first week, she and Caleb returned to the Grand Marlowe. They sat inside the same conference room where he had overheard the conversation. The room had been renovated. The table was new. The service door remained in the same place. "You were standing there?" Vanessa asked. "Outside with champagne. And you heard me say clients were paying for certainty." "Yes." "I stole that line from my father," Caleb laughed. "So the company is built on stolen intellectual property." "Apparently." She looked around the room. "What did you think when you heard us?" "That wealthy people had created an expensive problem because no one wanted to carry responsibility past their own task." "That is not very flattering." "It was useful. You could have walked inside and offered the solution." "I didn't have one." "You had the insight." "That is not the same thing." Caleb had learned that many people possessed insights. Fewer turned them into procedures. Fewer still built teams capable of repeating them when the founder was absent. The idea had started Handled. Systems had made it a company. People had made it valuable. Discipline had kept it alive. Years after the public offering, Handled operated in more than 120 cities. Its healthcare division transported and completed millions of critical requests. Its hospitality teams managed global conferences, private travel, and high-value guest needs. Its legal division handled secure physical documents. Its emergency network could locate, acquire, and deliver essential items across major cities at any hour. Competitors copied the phrase outcome delivery. Some used it only in marketing. Clients learned the difference. Handled's most important measure was not on-time arrival. It was confirmed outcome completion. The company tracked whether the medicine reached the patient, whether the equipment entered service, whether the contract reached the signer, whether the replacement garment reached the performer, whether the gift reached the guest, whether the object fulfilled the reason anyone had moved it in the first place. Caleb's mother never fully recovered from her stroke. He moved her into a private care residence near his home. On good days, she understood the scale of the company. On difficult days, she believed Caleb still worked for Dalton. One afternoon, she looked at his suit. "Are you driving today?" "Not today." "You need to be careful. Your father drove tired." "I remember." "Companies don't care if drivers are tired." "Mine does." She looked at him. "You own a company?" "Yes." "What kind?" He thought about explaining the software, the global offices, the healthcare contracts, and the billions in annual transactions. Instead, he answered simply, "We make sure important things reach the people who need them." His mother nodded. "That sounds useful." It was the best description he ever received. On the 10th anniversary of Handled, the company held no luxury celebration. Caleb used the event budget to open the Samuel Monroe Center for Driver Safety and Ownership. The center provided rest facilities, legal support, financial education, emergency grants, and business training for delivery workers. It also funded small companies founded by drivers, dispatchers, warehouse workers, and couriers. The first class contained 30 founders. One wanted to build a refrigerated delivery service for small farms. Another had designed safer equipment for bicycle couriers. A former medical driver wanted to create rural prescription routes. A hotel porter had an idea for recovering and returning forgotten guest items. Caleb spoke to them inside a training room. He wore his father's broken watch. "I overheard one conversation," he said. "That conversation did not make me wealthy." The founders listened. It gave me a question. He wrote it on the board. What is the customer actually paying to prevent? People often describe a business by the task it performs, Caleb continued. Driving, cleaning, repairing, cooking, carrying, but customers usually pay because they fear a consequence. He pointed toward the board. A driver moves an item. The client may be paying to prevent a missed meeting, a ruined wedding, a delayed treatment, a failed presentation, or a frightened patient. A woman raised her hand. How do you know which consequence matters? Ask what happens if you fail. After the session, a young man waited near the door. He wore a delivery uniform. Mr. Monroe? Yes. My route was reduced last week. I'm trying to start a service for elderly customers, but I don't have money for a van. How many customers? 7. Do they pay? Yes. What do they need? Groceries, pharmacy collections, small errands? That is what you do. What do they actually need? The man thought. Someone they trust to notice if something is wrong. Caleb smiled. That is the business. He connected the man with the center's funding team, not because every delivery driver would become wealthy. Most businesses failed. Most ideas required adjustment. Most people needed more than inspiration. But Caleb believed workers closest to problems often understood opportunities invisible to executives. They lacked access, capital, time, and permission. Handeld's founder fund could provide some of those things. Late that evening, Caleb returned alone to the Grand Marlowe. He entered through the loading dock. The dock manager was new. He did not recognize Caleb and asked to see identification. Caleb appreciated that. He walked through the service corridor and stopped near the conference room. A delivery worker stood outside with 3 boxes on a cart. The employee inside pointed toward the wall. Just leave them there. The driver looked at the labels. These are for 3 different guests. The concierge will handle it. Which concierge? The employee frowned. I don't know. Just leave them. Caleb waited. The driver did not move. I need a name, she said. The employee sighed and made a call. 2 minutes later, a guest services coordinator arrived, verified the recipients, and took responsibility for the boxes. The driver photographed the handoff and closed the request. Handeld's logo appeared on her jacket. She noticed Caleb watching. Can I help you? No. He looked at the boxes disappearing toward the correct destination. You already did. He continued into the lobby. For the first time, he stood beneath the chandelier not as a delivery worker who had taken the wrong corridor, but as the founder of a global company whose systems operated throughout the hotel. Guests crossed the marble floor, cars arrived beneath the canopy, staff carried luggage, flowers, documents, shopping bags, and packages. Everything in the building was moving. But movement no longer impressed Caleb. He had spent his early life believing the person who carried the box occupied the lowest position in the transaction. The manufacturer created the product, the seller earned the margin, the hotel received the guest, the executive made the decision. The driver only moved the object between them. Handled proved something different. The final person in the chain often stood closest to failure. They saw the wrong room number, the damaged package, the closed entrance, the missing recipient, the schedule that changed, the instruction that made sense on a screen and failed in the real world. Caleb had built his fortune by respecting what people at the end of the chain could see, not by escaping delivery work, by understanding its hidden value. He left the hotel through the front entrance. A black car waited at the curb. His assistant had arranged it. Caleb looked at the vehicle, then at the city street. He told the driver he would walk. The night was cool. He passed office towers, restaurants, apartment buildings, hospitals, and hotels. Handled teams were active inside many of them. Caleb touched the broken watch on his wrist. His father's 2 categories had never been complete. There were people who owned the things being moved, people whose backs moved them, and people who learned from the movement well enough to build something better. Caleb Monroe had entered the Grand Marlowe carrying someone else's champagne. He left years later owning a company worth billions. But the real change had happened before the money. It happened the moment he stopped seeing himself as a driver completing a route and began seeing the problem no one else had accepted responsibility to solve. The clients had never needed another person to carry a package. They needed someone willing to say, "I will stay responsible until the reason you called me is no longer at risk." That promise made Handle different. Keeping it made Caleb rich.